Howdy, folks. Sunday today, spending time in the shop. Love it. I like to spend time in the shop, tingle around with equipment. I have two tips of the day. I think I have previous video. I replaced rear end sensors. I replaced one in the front, one in the back. The gauge still didn't work. Cleaned the grounds out of it. Still didn't work. Then the front one, I actually found a broken wire. And I think they got broken by tightening a zip ties on them, and they were riding like this back and forth. And actually was right there someplace, actually had a broken wire. So those sensors are 50 bucks. They about $52 or $53 a sensor. Before you replace the sensor, if your gauges don't work, check your wiring. Otherwise, I spent 100 bucks for no reason. I threw both sensors away and still didn't work, but had a broken wire on it. This is something gets missed. Another thing I found out about today, I will grab my flashlight and a creeper. I got a Caterpillar C15. I work on quite a few of them when I work for the shop. We didn't work on the engines much. We mainly did driveline and gearboxes, stuff like that. So this is short hood Peterbilt. Turn my flashlight on. Right down there, you guys can see it's one of the bolts. That's the front bolt for the motor mount. I did replace the transmission in this truck. Switched it from 10 to 18, and they are right there, as you guys can see them. So when I had the transmission out, it's actually my dumb mistake, and some shops do it too. That is actually nylon nuts. And I did put new motor mounts on it. I beat on them and they wouldn't come out, so I ended up heating them and a nylon melted. If you're doing this thing at home and you don't have those kind of bolts, at least put red Loctite on them, because they do back out. If they will back out, like this one, let me gear up here. This one, it's tight. They're not supposed to be super tight. You're not supposed to squash this thing. If they will back out, like mine did today, the motors end up jumping little by little. Inside here in the bell housing, behind the flywheel, Caterpillar has bolts. I think some of them 5/8 and some of them 9/16. They basically, if you had a transmission out, there's gonna be one, they kind of look like a Christmas tree, and there's a bunch on the top. Same thing, the motor mounts is right there. They were loose too. The motor mounts look good. Like I said, I just replaced them, but the nylon was off of them. So put a little bit of, loosen them up, put a Loctite on them. But they were backed off. They were loose. Like you push on a bolt and a bolt goes out. What happened is, I'm glad I catched it in the right time, because by slapping it this hard, they like to break in bell housing bolts inside. And if you have a broken bell housing bolt inside, when you remove the transmission, I recommend to change the motor mounts on. This is something the guys go do PMs at the shop and always gets overlooked. I think the motor mounts it needs to be checked fairly often. Every time you change the oil, you underneath the truck, look at your motor mounts, both sides. That's a torque side. That's engine basically lives like this, and those motor mounts get beat up on the bottom, and those get beat up on the top. So if you have too much play in it, you will have potential to break the motor mounts. Not motor mounts, bell housing bolts. And I just had a Detroit in here, and I did the transmission on it too. They actually, let me get up here. See the angle iron? I can one time. This angle iron right here, part of the motor mount, and there's a bolt on the top. There's actually 3 of them on this. No, it's 4 on the Cat, and it's 4 on the Detroit. Those bolts actually got loose they came out for some reason. They couldn't take vibration, so they came out, and I cut them in the right time before they actually broke off. Same thing, I backed them out a little bit more, put a Loctite on them, and tied them with the hand the best as I could, and it seems like he's doing good with it. So, check my drive line. Drive line looked good. But that's basically it. I'm glad I actually spent time and I climbed underneath the truck and I actually found the problem with it. So there was no side effect, there was no vibrations, it wasn't no jump and shift or anything, but the bolts were loose. I actually should have grabbed my camera and did it before. On the 379 Peterbilt, there's another thing. I need to do it. If you hear when you turn in with the load or empty and you hear like a popping noise, most likely is this thing's either wore out or they get loose. So basically as the pin goes through and then there's a bolt, there's 4 bolts, and this is called dog bone. They get actually spread out and then they have play on them. I'm gonna redesign these things. I gotta get a length of an 8-inch bolt, and I will drill a hole straight through, which basically is a gap right there. I will drill a hole straight through, take these things off, drill them out, then put them back and actually have a bolt up here, and I will tie them together, but you don't want to get it too tight because you're gonna start wearing your dog bone out. Make sure you have washers there, which mine does. Get them tight together, that way they're not gonna shift. Because I have the same problem. This is second 379 Peterbilt I have, and they actually pop. So, and when you're supposed to grease them, actually some guys put the jack underneath the leaf spring and they grease their kingpins with pressure off the kingpin. You're supposed to lift it on the frame, especially 379s. If you have a grease Yorkshire, you lift them up so this thing sits up and down and take the pressure away from it, and the grease needs to come off from the top because that's the main pressure on this pins. On the pin is on the top of the pin, and this bottom one is on the bottom of the pin. So if you're gonna grease in the position where it sits right now, you will have a ton of grease coming out of the bottom and a ton of grease coming out on the top right here, and you don't get grease up there on the top. Yes, I know some guy's gonna tell me when you drive down the road, actually grease gets there. No, it's not. There's multiple times you took it apart, a bunch of grease on the bottom, and the pin on the top completely polished, and it wears the bushing out. So that's basically a couple tips of the day. Things I found out. I had desire to make video. Thanks for watching.